Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. Thank God. Hi there. Okay, so I promised my testers for the Sewn Adaptive LWS Sewn Adaptive bomber jacket pattern that I would go over how I do my front welt pockets for the jacket, because I too am a little skeptical of my written instructions. So I thought for those who are visual learners like myself, I would come on here and show you all how I do it, so that hopefully you can have success with yours. So for things, I have two cameras. You can see the overhead here is of my my big mat space. And then here's so I can talk. I've got to figure this whole thing out to probably have a third camera with regards to like the sewing machine, because the way I have my studio set up, I need that third camera to kind of be at all the areas. I see people on here and they have these really concise spots with their cameras, and yeah, I need some space. So anyway, so I'm going to start. So this is the front piece. I am doing the standard version of this one, so it's slightly longer. The adaptive one lands right about here. And the way we do the welt pockets, the front ones. So let me grab. So I like to read this quilt. This is a standard length example quilt before, and these are the welt pockets that I'm going over. So if as I go there are any questions, just throw them up in the comments. And Coco, this obviously will be recorded and saved. So, you know, if you need to go back and relook at it, it'll be there for you. So on the front pattern piece, you have these lines, which are the pocket marking, basically to say where your pocket should be depending on which size you are making. Now, the reason why I only do one line is because with every size, those lines change for each size. And so you're gonna use your line to create your box and ignore the other lines. But to answer, I think, a question you might have actually been the one that had, that's why I didn't put the full square on there. So you're going off that line. And when you go off that line is the bottom of your pocket. Okay. So one of the things that I also do is I will take a pattern punch. I don't know if you can see that. Whenever there's like on commercial patterns, whenever there's like circles or something like that, one of these, punch all those so you can just chalk through those onto your fabric. So I've punched either end of that marking line and then transferred that marking line to each front piece of the jacket. Now, it might be a little hard to see. I'm going to see if you can see the square that I've drawn with a, I like to use chalk that disappears with heat, but sometimes, that doesn't show up. So I use the pens that disappear with heat. But the thing that I do for almost all pockets is I create a template. So with cardstock, sometimes I'll just go in my Cricut with cardstock and do the dimensions of the box so that I have a perfect measured box. And then I cut that out. And then this line right here is that line that you marked the dots on either side. I just line up the template exactly to those 2 dots that you had here. And then I'll throw on some pattern weights so nobody can shift and move. And I will chalk the entire box on both sides. Templates for pockets, regardless of what kind of pockets, back pockets are great for pressing and great for getting a good, accurate mark. So I do that for both front pieces. The Welt pocket consists of three pieces, but 2 of the 3 pieces have 2, right? So you have your pocket bag, you have your exterior welt facing, cut 2, and all of that's on the pattern piece. And then you have your welt itself, and you're going to cut 2 of these, 1 for each pocket. I also added, since I guess it was like yesterday, that you can cut 2 of fuse 2 if you want to fuse that fabric. It all depends, because it's in an area that's, a lot of your hand going in and out. You definitely want it to have a little bit of strength. But a lot of times, like, I'll use leather or I'll use quilt. And so you don't need it. But in this case, for what I'm doing these pockets out of, you do. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb. You don't have to fuse if you have a substantial fabric, but if it's just a regular old fabric, you're going to want to give it a little something so that it stays, structured. Okay, let me look at the, okay. Molly, I'm trying to understand. So the pocket that we're working on right now is the 2 front pockets on the jacket, whether it's standard or adaptive. The adaptive length jacket, the pockets have been raised just by like 2 inches because the jacket ends basically when seated right at their lap or just above. And so I raise the pockets a little bit just so they can have access to them. If somebody in a wheelchair is wearing the standard jacket, besides the fact that there's going to be a lot of billowing of material onto their lap, their pockets, you couldn't even get to them. Most of the time, my clients don't even want pockets. Matter of fact, they actually like the interior pockets better for them, because they always have to be hands-free. So they're not going to stop and put their hands in their pocket per se. But on the interior, you could put a cell phone or something like that. So anyway, all right, let me make sure I'm on step 3 and I'm trying to understand which piece that you're folding in half. You're folding in half exterior welt. So the 3 pieces, exterior welt, you should have cut 2. Exterior welt facing, which is wider, you should cut 2 of your same fashion fabric that you're making your jacket out of, and cut 2 of your lining, the same fabric that you're making your pocket bag out of. So I've already folded the welt piece in half and pressed it. Okay. And then, so a couple things that I do. Okay. I showed you chalk out where it's going to go. Then you prepare your welt itself. And maybe you've interfaced it when this is opened. And I'm reluctant to because I'm going to have to sew it down. But obviously when this is open flat, it's this. So if you interface it or don't interface it, I will say, so I interfaced this. This is like almost like a nylon satin. And I did a piece of interfacing, and then I also used a little bit of basting spray and put a little bit of felt. And that's only because I kind of want this to be a little bit quilted. When it's in the seam, it'll sort of, I guess, dimple is kind of the best way to describe it once I sew it in. It'll just make it a little more 3-dimensional in that welt space. Cut it out, fuse it, fold it exactly in half and press it. So then that's ready. And then of your exterior welt facings, you have cut 1 that is the same as your fabric, and 1 out of your lining. And on one edge of the lining, I turn it in 1/4 inch and press it so that one edge is clean. This is the one that will be your seam allowance. And then because I do quilts, I use quilts a lot, I overlock the sides of the other welt facing. You don't have to, depending on what you're making it out of. You just don't have to. But I clean it up just so everybody's staying put. Okay, so to the overheads camera. So the first thing you do, I will, not always, but I find it helpful. I will take my template. I will come down 1 inch from the straight edge of the pocket bags. And while I'm thinking of it, in the directions, I feel like the illustrator made them look like this, which isn't a problem per se, but they should be this way. So note to self that I gotta turn those around. Anyway, so I will chalk these lines on both pieces of the pocket bag just to help me as I'm lining things up. For sure, the one that goes directly underneath your fashion piece. So the way it works, layering wise, I'm going to set the back bag over there. So the way it works is with the right side basically facing the table and your front on top. After I've, chalked that square, I will line up that square with the square on top. So they're just laying on top of each other. Okay. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your welt, and you are going to put your welt. I usually chalk off on the welt facings, 1/4 inch kind of guide. You won't see this line once you kind of have the welt sandwich built. But as you're lining things up, it'll just help you make sure that that 1/4 inch lines up directly on that welt leg that's facing towards the bottom. The other thing I do before I start pinning together is I will chalk or marker exactly half of your box. So that's like 3/8. The box itself is 3/4. Make sure that I'm at 3/8. Okay. Okay. I don't know if you can see that really well. Actually, I could do it with chalk. It might show it. Okay. So, pocket bag is underneath. Right side is facing the table because that will be the inside of your pocket. Then I take my welt and I line it up on that line, making sure that you have kind of that inch extension off the bottom of the welt box there, because you'll need this to work with when it's turned inside out. Okay, then you lay your facing, the lining piece, directly on top of the welt, keeping those even so they line up together. Everybody's staying in place. And I will pin through all the layers. So go up and through, and I make sure that I catch the pocket bag. And you're going to do that all the way down. And I usually do like 3, kind of side, and center. Okay. So that's the side that the welt is on. Now on the opposite side, facing your sleeve, you're going to take the welt facing piece that matches your jacket, and you're going to lay that on the opposite outside welt leg. And if you've overlocked you can kind of follow just after the stitching, because that usually works out to be about 1/4 of an inch. But if you want to make sure that you're being super precise, I did this on the other pocket. I will typically draw off 1/4 inch right there, and then lay it on top. Like that. So that center chalk line, I mean, it's there. It's not super, I mean, if you press down, you can kind of see it. So you're going to pin just like you did here, over here, going through all layers. I'm just going to do it like this for a second because I want to make sure and catch the bag. Okay. Okay. So now you're ready. You'll be sewing through all these layers. One other thing that I do is you can see between these where the perpendicular line to those welts are. I will mark those on top of the facings to my little 1/4 inch line there. And I do that to know where exactly to stop on both ends. Not only is it important that the distance between the two welt legs is accurate, but stopping at the same place on both sides is also important. So you have it like this. You're going to go over to your sewing machine. I start on one side. I usually, if you have an automatic that, like knots first, turn that off, have it go, down into the fabric, go a couple stitches, and then go back and knot, and then come back again, and go all the way down here and end the same way. When you get to that, that corner, that 45-degree, take like 2 or 3 stitches backwards and do that the same over here. Same exact thing, starting and stopping at the same place. You will be going through everything: pocket bag, facings, welt, facing. Okay. And just for reference, that's what it looks like on the back. Are there any crazy questions that I've missed? Hey, Carmen. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm just explaining some welts. Okay, so now, are we even seeing this? Is there a way for me to zoom my overhead camera for everybody, or should I just take me off? That's what I'll do, right? I know I need to zoom in, but I'm trying to figure it out. Let's see. Nope, not zoom me. Not sure how. You know what, Molly? I had Welt in the instructions, and I actually think that we should change the name. Okay, if okay, Carmen, any of you guys, how do I zoom my other camera? This guy, who's a guest. Yeah, that's how I did it. Do I have to do it from my phone? All right, I'm going to just hold it up. You guys, I'm a rookie to this stuff. I can sew like a mofo, but technical I am not. So once your welt sides are sewn, they look like this. Okay. The back looks like this. And the significant thing is to just see that those are parallel. You'll see the lines that I drew for marking, and that's shifted a bit, and it doesn't matter. I've got enough up here and all the way around. It's fine. It's the pocket bag. But these being parallel, starting and stopping at the same spot is what's important. So now that you have done that, take out the pins. You all will probably be familiar with cutting at a Y on welt pockets. I typically start, well, I mean, some people have you just like do that and do a clip and start. You can do that. I typically use my rotary from the center and stop about 5/8 away from that perpendicular line. And then do it that way. Same thing, stop. And then with scissors, I cut the little Y to each corner. So I'm going to do that first. And obviously you want to make sure you're cutting all the way through. Okay. Do a little bit more. I am on a quest. I posted about this to get a new pair of something that has like deadly sharp tips. Okay. Now, when you cut through to the corners, so that 45-degree angle on either side that you've drawn, you need to cut that Y. So it's the one side of the Y that goes at an angle, and then the other. You want to cut through all the layers right to the point of the first stitch. You don't want to cut the first stitch. You don't want to be short just of the first stitch. You want to be right there, right at it. And I'm old and wear glasses, so now one thing I also do, I will throw a pin and hold this mother in place so that nobody accidentally gets cut. Yeah, see, that's why I need new scissors. Okay, let's see. Yes, I have updated it on Slack. Touch the screen with 2 fingers. Carmen, so funny. It's not letting me. I'll raise it up to the camera. Yeah, obviously I got to get this sorted. And the reason why the super sharp scissors are especially important for getting this right, but because I do so many of these out of quilts, there's a lot going on there. So those directions are for the chat, not you. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So now I've cut the Y's on both ends. Now you're going to turn the facing, say all the guts, everything to the inside. And you see you have your little triangles right here that you've just clipped through. This facing at the moment is up. Your welt, you lay those triangles going out. Your lining facing is facing down. Okay. And your top facing, you kind of push the welt right into the crack of that top facing, and you pull your top facing down. And then you would give that a good press. But then you see on this side, you can see the welt. Perfectly formed. Now, so you would press this. A little trick. If you've gotten off at all on some of your dimensions right here, you just do a little tug. Do a little tug on that top facing that we just folded back down onto the pocket bag, and that will line everything up. Okay? So you take that, you press that. I'm pretty pleased. That looks great. Now you'll flip one end over. So now I'm seeing the pocket bag, the triangle in lining, the triangle of the fashion fabric, the front of the jacket, the edge of the welt, just a tiny edge of the lining facing, and then the entire surface of the fashion fabric welt facing. So now what you're going to do, so you've pressed it, now you're going to stitch through from the top of the welt facing fashion fabric one, through the lining, through the triangle, through the welt, and just past the welt. so that you have really tacked right at the side of your welt pocket opening without going into your front piece, right there. I usually will use my zipper foot and just go right there. And if you used your template and drew on your pocket bag, you might even have a nice line like I've got there to follow. So you do those there. You go on the other side and do the same thing. And you're just going through like an inch and a half to be getting all those pieces. Getting those pieces now anchors your welt in place. And when you open, you have lining on that side. And this is, you open your pocket and put your hand in, it, corresponds with the front of your jacket. Does that make sense to everybody? Inserting the body on your facing pieces so there's no ridges. At the beginning, yes. Unless somebody asks that, and okay. I overlock my welt facing because it's made out of a repurposed quill. So there's usually multiple layers and stitching and stuff. So I always clean that facing up. The lining facing, I just turn one edge under, to the wrong side so that the right side is smooth. So that's the other pocket, the lining side. Okay, now pretend I did the stitching and you would see it right here. Now what I do, I will fold back the one facing, get rid of that pin. I will hold the lining facing to the pocket bag and sew directly across. Okay. Then I take the other pocket bag. Let me get the right one. I take the back of the pocket bag, line that up, turn this open, and stitch the fashion fabric welt facing. I will stitch that to the back pocket bag, flip it back on itself. So you'll see a stitch line there. So you now have your facings anchored to the pocket bag layers. And then you're going to stitch 1/2 inch all the way around. You've already anchored all the stuff on the sides, so nothing can go anywhere, but you'll go all the way around. In the instructions, I said if you're so inclined, you could overlock the bag. We were talking about it this morning. Carmen commented, and I agree that typically the inside of these things does in fact look like a war zone. And I got to be honest with you, the rebellious part of me kind of loves having that little secret. Yeah, looks like hell on the inside. So what? But if you want to make sure that your pocket bag is like extra strong, maybe you're a fidgety person and you pop a hole in your pocket bag, it's a little minor surgery to go back in and fix it unless you just, whip stitch it from the inside. But that's it. That's how you make the jacket welt pockets. Mine would be better if I had pressed it and done the stitching. So just to give you a little, so I am doing a quilt, obviously. And this quilt is, I did it on the bias because I wanted to create this chevron visually. Now I know that there's a little bit of stuff here and here, but this will be taken in the seam allowance of the collar, and this will be taken in the center front seam allowance where you sew on your facing. So it will be chevron when it's done. Yes. Yeah, these pockets are, these are good. I'm actually having a little internal dilemma on how I had us do the interior ones, because when Carmen was doing Nikki's pocket this morning, I almost would rather do it that way on the interior. It's one of those things. Not everybody wants an interior pocket. Typically, men do. That's my experience. So that's the welted pocket. While you guys have me, are there any other questions about the jacket? Anyone? Molly, where are you at on the process, and did this make sense? Yeah, you don't have to. I don't always. I did on Buffalo jacket because I knew I'd be having pattern testers and I was going to give the option. But a lot of times I don't. Oh, good. And another sneak peek. So the kid version is being graded. So I'm going to have it go from like little guy, to tween. Same silhouette. Same exact silhouette. No interior welts offered, but exterior welts. So this is the largest so far version of that one, with a Terrence Williams headband. Yeah. So I have no idea how long I've been on. Where would I even see that? And okay. Love the Buffalo Bomber. Oh, I'm like, what Buffalo Bomber? Thank you. I haven't put the closures on yet because I was thinking of waiting and doing the video for all of you so that it makes sense. One of the things that I didn't do on purpose was mark where to put the snaps. I can kind of go over that. Oh, what size am I cutting for me? I'm supposed to cut out the fabric, and I think I'm going to do a practice sample of the welt. You know what? It's no big thing to do that. And I have a video of myself doing this that I have on my phone, that I constantly watch. It's, unless you're making welts every day, it's not necessarily something you always retain. But anyway, yeah, it won't take you long. The whole thing with welt pockets, regardless of the method, is being precise in your markings and being precise in your cutting to that corner. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of measuring, making sure it's precise. And honestly, with this jacket, the hardest part of this jacket is what we just did. It's super easy. Super easy. But welt pockets are like making jeans, are like making your first swimsuit, making your first bra. Mastering those kinds of things are those milestones as a sewer, that are, that's the good stuff. You know what I mean? I can remember being terrified to do invisible zippers. Now, don't make me do it the other way, but it's just practice, and hey, sewing typically being an isolated sport, I mean, nobody's there to tell you effed up when you effed up. So what? It's like, do it. I mean, that's probably the hardest part about having done this, the pattern. The pattern itself isn't hard. I've made it enough times that I know that the pattern is good. The putting the instructions into writing, which I got help on, and as I've in our group, I kind of regret that. But it's those things that it's like, those aren't my strengths. It's just not. Writing is not one of my strengths. I would much rather do it this way. I know I can explain things visually, but for these patterns, you have to have that. So we're doing our best. So far, feedback has been nothing but, for me, like a giant thank you. Yeah. No ego, no nothing. It's all good. And I'm just super excited to see people making this. It's, when my first pattern came out for Nomi, I mean, that was exciting that it was like out there, but honestly, the first time seeing somebody else make it, that was the most exhilarating part. So, and this design and all the other designs that I am doing are always going to have an adaptive component to them. If not the entire, my next pattern coming out, the entire silhouette works for both. So one pattern on many types of bodies. So I'm excited. I'm excited to hopefully open people's perspective to adaptive really can be fashion for everyone. So that's my goal. That's my take. This jacket I'm making for my daughter, Jenny. I talked to her this week and just suspected that she needed a little pick-me-up. So Jenny likes to lean and dress kind of preppy, which is hilarious because I was a kid when the preppy handbook, Molly will remember what I'm talking about, was a big thing. And yeah, so for her to say, make it preppy, it's kind of like, the irony. So I am this quilt, creating that chevron. need all of that. This is her rib knit. That's why the green pockets. And then green 24L ring snaps. So, yeah. And that will hopefully be finished this week with all of you. So, anyway, yes, of course, you had an Izod. And either Bass Weegens or Sperry topsiders with the knots done the special way. Anyway, okay, are there any other questions? Again, I don't even know like how long I'm supposed to be on or have to be on. Oh wait, I just saw the clock up there. Okay, so I don't know if Carmen's still on here or anybody else is Twitch proficient. So do I have to at least hit an hour? Is that the dealio? Doesn't matter. Okay. One of you testers, you gotta ask me a question. Is there anything so far, maybe even looking ahead in the instructions, that you don't know if they're not making sense to you? Anyone? One thing I will explain, because I don't know if the drawings, again, I'm not sure. So your ribbing gets attached to the bottom edge of the jacket, as well as the lining. And those together create the fold. So until both of those sides are sewn, it's technically still like this. Inside out, you sew end to end. And then I bring the selvages together, stitch it, turn the entire jacket right side out through the hole in the sleeve lining, press it, top stitch it, and that's how you get the fully enclosed everywhere. Which is why if you blow out your pocket bag on the inside, it could be minor surgery to fix it. Okay. Will the interior welt pockets be constructed the same way you just showed? It's a little different because it doesn't have all the, has the two facings, the same as this exterior one. The pocket bag is kind of utilized to be the facing. So I am definitely going to go over that via video also, because I might change the method that I put in there, because like I said earlier today, in looking how Nikki has done it on her pattern, I think I like that method better, but the pieces are already what they need to be. That makes sense. stay tuned. Let's see. Thinking of making a version without satin, no lining. What are your thoughts? I mean, you can. Without the lining, I'm trying to think. Well, here's the only thing. Without the lining, obviously you still have a facing on the inside of the jacket. Without the lining, I mean, you'd have to overlock or clean up basically from the top of the facing, back of the neck to there, and here. But you could. Also, if there's no lining, you will see your pocket business on the inside. So you better make it clean. Okay. Yeah. You want it to be lightweight. We'll just use lightweight and line it. It'll still be pretty lightweight. Just depends, you know. I have made this out of super fat, thick quilts. This one I would say is kind of medium, and the only reason why it is because it's old enough that it's like compressed. But I do like it because they've done the quilt stitch all the way through, like with this yellow. I don't know. I'm not a quilter, but I have mad respect for the quilter. And so, you know, I did stay stitch these front pieces. You don't have to do that on yours. I did that because I cut this on the bias and I don't want this to get any longer in either direction because I've created a chevron visually. So that's that. Can you please sell some bomber jacket kits with the matching ribbing and hardware? I totally can. My one, I guess, dilemma is, well, first of all, it's like, do you want it to just have like you want the fabric and everything? Because I have like tons and tons, like way too many quilts to repurpose with. So it's like, I could do a kit, you know, you picked out a quilt, you know, cut out the stuff, or it's just the ribbing and the hardware. I don't know. Hardware and cuffs, yeah. And I could totally do that. Yeah. You're not the first one to mention it. Yeah, I think it's like if it was just ribbing and, you know, like pattern ribbing and cuffs, collar, you know, or snaps. Yeah. Let me put a little thought into that. Probably need to take a couple polls and see what kind of, I guess, ribbing and stuff people like the most. Which, by the way, stay tuned. Can't give too much away, but I have some custom ribbing that should be here soon that some of you all are totally going to want. So stay tuned. It'll be at the trim shop. Okay. What is it? Speaking of which, you need to order. Oh, you need to order ribbing? Well, yeah, get on that. I had orders go out yesterday. Everybody that ordered last night went out today. Yeah, it's usually 3 days max, the shipping. So anyway, all right. Well, I did an hour. I feel good about that. And I did 2 camera, which is really a big deal for me. Next time I'll have an intro and maybe another camera so I can actually sit and sew at the same time. So we'll see. Those of you on Slack, if there's any other questions, throw them there and let me know if there's the next video you'd like me to do, and I'd be happy to do that. So anyway, thank you guys for showing up. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, we'll see you around. Have a good night, guys.